All right, hey, what's up, guys? We have Michael here. He is an indie filmmaker. Right now, he is in Spain, but he is from Australia. So, how you doing today, Michael? How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, Micah. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself first before we start?
Yeah, just as far as filmmaking goes, sort of had a pretty standard like first few years. Went to like a film school, volunteered on a bunch of student films, got lucky enough to work on a feature, which was like just insane. Um, from there, sort of like started, taking knowledge from all the projects I was like working on and volunteering on and making my own stuff. Didn't do too well with those things. With my first few shorts, took like a bit of a year or two off to just focus on writing completely. Got really good at that, and then basically came back and made a short film that was like, 15 times the budget of anything I had made myself before. And yeah, I just feel like I've, got all this knowledge now that's like so hard to get unless you're going to go through the mistakes yourself. Like I wanted to do a lot of research before jumping into my short, and I just realized like, there's only so much you can read about. You just sort of have to dip your toes in. So that's where I am now, just on that high of finishing a pretty big project, I guess.
Yeah, so you just finished a project that's 15x times what you normally do. Um,
Mhm.
what project is that? And yeah, and then also, how did you get did you get finance for that, or were you able how did you get finance for that?
Yeah, I didn't get finance for that. I basically just went back home because I'm located in Spain now, but I'm originally from Sydney, Australia. So I basically just went home, got my old job back, worked for like 5 months, spent all the money on the film, and that's it. Like you don't really get to do that too many times before you sort of tap out. But
Yeah,
it's
so
gone pretty well.
you're doing it yourself. And I have to ask first, you're from Sydney. Do you surf? Did you surf at all there?
I get that question so many times. I've never surfed, and I think I got to keep not surfing now, just so I can keep giving that response.
Yeah, you're like fuck surfing. No, just kidding.
That's it.
Yeah, I asked because I used to be I don't even surf anymore, but I used to be a surfer, and I've recently done like surf videos on YouTube, and I've
Mm.
covered like anywhere from Mexico to California to Australia, and just like looking that part of the coast, I'm like, man, this is insane. I just the last video I did was one of it's called Superbank in Australia. It's like Snapper Rocks. Do you know where that is?
Mm-mm.
It's I'm trying to think of that's the thing. It's Queensland, I think. I think it's the Gold Coast or Queensland. You know where that is?
Yes.
How far away from there are you?
About a day's drive.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like a perfect like this perfect wave, but it's like super crowded and super like the water's just super clear. So it like looks like this like it's not great because it's crowded, but it looks like a perfect wave. And from what I've seen of Sydney, it's great too, the beaches there and stuff. So but we're not here to talk
Yeah.
about surfing. So yeah, so as you said before, like you're here to help out with anybody who's making that jump. I'm definitely one of those people. I do videos for like Instagram and YouTube. Unfortunately, I've kind of transitioned recently into more of like AI type stuff, only because it's easier and like I just have had a hard time kind of traveling to places as much recently. So I've done more like AI generated stuff, but I also definitely do my own filming, but it's mostly on the iPhone. So with this new film that you did, are you getting it? Is it well? First of all, what was the major? You said you worked on a major film. What was that?
Yeah, so I worked on this like spoof of the Blair Witch Project.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's man, the director was a real genius because like with these like low budget features, like they're just never gonna be of like amazing quality. And he had the brilliant idea of essentially making it a mockumentary. Um, Man, there are some brilliant mockumentaries out there that just like make the low budget thing their whole identity, and it works because the characters in the film are making a film, so like the low budget nature of it is sort of like part of the story. So I gotta say, like it really sucked But as much as it sucked, it just sort of made it better because it was like, this is meant to be this way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like my girlfriend might have watched that. What was it called?
Not the Claire Wizard thesis.
The what?
The Claire Wizard thesis. So it's like the
Uh,
Blair Witch Project. We've got
okay.
like Claire, and she's got a thesis instead of a project now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know my girlfriend. I feel like she watched. Maybe it was just like a follow up to the Blair Witch. I thought, or it may have been.
Ah, yeah.
It may have. I don't know if it was that or like just like the part two or whatever. But whatever it was like cheesy. Like there was like drones. I feel like there was like one part where like they set up like a drone. I
I
don't
think
know.
we did have one drone shot.
Yeah, and but I mean, if this one was yours or not, was this one in like theaters or anything, or like would you be able to watch this one?
Yeah, you can buy it off Amazon, I'm pretty sure. So that ended up like going to a film, like uniquely enough and weirdly enough, it went to a film festival here in Spain. And then from there, the director slash producer managed to like sell it to like a really small distributor who essentially just like, you know, I think it's called an aggregator. Basically, they can just they take your film. So a lot of like indie filmmakers that make features, like they don't really have the resources to get it out there. And like back in the day, like the early days of Amazon, anyone could just submit. But after they started to get enough of a baseline of films, they started making it so you've got to go through these aggregators. So he went through an aggregator that got it onto like Amazon and like a bunch of other online platforms. And yeah, you can definitely catch it on Amazon still.
Do you have to buy it or like can you stream it if you have like Amazon Prime or whatever? Or is it one you just have to buy?
Yeah, you've got to buy it because I tried to stream it myself as well recently, so that's how I know that.
Yeah. Okay. And then what did you do on that project?
Yeah, so it's super weird. I mean, like, I love talking candidly about this project because it was just insane. So I came on as like a second assistant director, which is like basically when you're the second assistant director on an indie project, it's like they want to, you're essentially like a production assistant, which is like the lowest position ever, but they just want to make you feel good about yourself. So they're like, we'll make you the second assistant director. So I was essentially like the lowest of the low. And the director was like, hey, I need you to do all this stuff. And then I was like, why isn't all this, like, number one, why isn't all this stuff done? Because we're like a week out from shooting. And number two, like, you've given me like half documents to work with. And like, I can't see the logic behind them. So like the producer had sort of started doing all this work and like I sort of like uncovered that he had done like a really not so great job. So I ended up going from like literally the lowest position of the film to like the line producer. And that was only because I literally said, I'm not going to be the producer on this project because like it's not my project. So I can't do that, even though it was offered. So yeah, I literally just my mission was to just fucking put out fires, essentially. Sorry, am I allowed to swear? I
Yeah, yeah.
apologize.
Oh, no problem.
um, yeah, so
Yeah.
so basically, my job was just to make sure that the film got done. Every day was like a new challenge. Like every night, I would go home and I would like redo the schedule because like the way that it was done before just wasn't like up to par. On the first day, we had like our one of our lead actors pull out. Like they just were like, I'm not coming, like forget it. And again, because it's a mockumentary and his role was always behind the camera, like as long as I could get a replacement, like he didn't need to learn his lines because he's just reading off the script behind the camera, if that makes sense. So like I filled that position. I got a bunch of like PAs, um, and I just basically just held the thing together essentially while everyone else did the actual filmmaking.
Yeah. So you actually acted in it?
No, I didn't act in it. That was
Oh,
the one thing I didn't do.
you got someone else to play that guy's
I,
part.
I found someone else like literally on the day. Like I don't know how, but I did.
Yeah. Was that filmed in Australia or where was that filmed?
Yeah, it was filmed in Sydney. Yeah.
Okay. And were there any like famous people in it like at all that I would recognize?
So the director like I want to like he's not famous, but like you can Google him. Phonetically, his name is Ishak Issa, and he's done like a lot of sort of just random like odd roles in Australia. But we also had this really famous, I think like supermodel essentially. I think her name's Crystal Linkova. Um, I think she's pretty known, and yeah, she was in it. Apart from that, just like all a bunch of like up and comers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. So your film now, where did you shoot it in Spain? Is that why you're in Spain, or you just live in Spain now?
No, I just live in Spain because my partner's Spanish.
Oh, okay. So where did you shoot your film?
So yeah, I went back to Sydney, saved up the money there, and basically again, this is where like the strategy of like indie filmmaking comes in, but I had an interior location, but I like if you've ever been on set, you know that sound is always an issue. So I rented this like cabin that was like so far out into the country, just had nothing around it, and we shot it in that cabin.
Okay, and then what was it about?
So it's so a lot of short films sort of have this like weird concept, whereas I just made it like this. I just wanted to make a short film that could have been a scene in another movie, and it was basically about this like forensics expert that works for the courts. She's in like in a really dire like position money wise. She comes home one night and there are like mobsters in her house, and they basically want to like hire her to essentially lie for them in court, like abuse her position like within the legal system to help them. And then what ends up happening is just like an intense dialogue exchange, and that's essentially the film. Like the film is just one scene.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna ask if I can see it, but I actually now that you bring it up, I remember I went to your Instagram and watched like a clip, and it
Mhm.
looks good. Um, yeah, I was pretty impressed with it. Um, because I had one guy on here like a while. I probably shouldn't talk shit, but I had one guy on here a while ago who did this short where it was like him at like a bus stop, and I think it was called like waiting at a bus stop or something. And I don't even think it was him. It was like he was filming somebody at a bus stop just talking to people. But it was like I feel like not to be mean, but like the quality was so low. It almost filmed like it was like below like iPhone level. Like it was like how did you even do this bad? Like when we have iPhones, like I feel bad saying that, but that was a while ago that I talked to him. But anyways, yeah, yours is definitely like good quality. And I wanted to ask you, and I know the acting looks pretty good too. Like that girl looked pretty legit. Um, so what kind of camera did you use for it?
Lucky I've been pulling up my phone because I realized you might be asking me some specific questions. So let me
I
just check because I had to ask this question recently.
I don't know too much about them because I don't have one. I know there's like if you go really high, it's like the Ari, Alexa, and like the Red, or like the really good ones, right?
Yeah, they get pretty insane. So we used a Canon C300 Mark III, which I did a quick Google and I think it was like 10,000 euros, which equates to 10,000 US roughly, which I didn't even know before we were shooting. Like I just leave it to my DOP to do that stuff, and he had an amazing camera. I didn't even know.
So you had like 15. Oh, he already had it.
He had it. Yeah.
All right, cool. So is
Yeah.
that kind of like a DSLR or is it more kind of like a film camera or?
No, it's just like I think it's like somewhere between like, the Reds and like the really great DSLRs. Like it's just one off the Red or the Ursa or something. Those insane cameras that you would never buy. Yeah.
Yeah. And so where did well, first of all, would people be able to see it right now or are they gonna be able to see it? How long is it? It's short, right?
Yeah, so I can't put it online anywhere because again, I don't know how much you know about film festivals, but basically, if I was to release a film online and it like somehow got out, that would like essentially disqualify it from like most film festivals that are like worth getting into essentially. Um, so like it's really weird. You make a short film and then you essentially spend like 2 years trying to like get it to film festivals, and you can't really show it around because like on the off chance that it somehow gets out, and then after that you have like you want to try to get it online for as many people to see it. So it's like I've realized like short films take like over 3 years to start to finish, which is insane.
Man, yeah, like the whole process is crazy how long it takes. Because I've been looking into like some movies when they're coming out and stuff, and it's like it seems like it takes forever. Um, yeah, so I don't know if you've heard of the Palm Springs Film Festival.
Definitely have.
Yeah, that one happened just I live like 30 minutes from there, and I wanted to go
Wow.
to try and like scout out some celebrities and see if I can like take videos, stalk them or whatever. But
Love it.
my girlfriend didn't really want to do that, and it was like super crowded. So do you plan on yours eventually being in something like that, like a Palm Springs Film Festival or like Sundance or those types of things, or maybe smaller ones? Or
Yeah, so I've submitted to all the film festivals I'm gonna submit to for essentially the year, and I've submitted to six. And basically, um, I submitted Tribeca was the early US based festival that I submitted to just because basically again with premiere status, like once your film is released, then all the other film festivals go on at less. So I chose the film festivals that I could attend, that the cast and crew can attend, and that don't require stringent essentially releases. So, the Tribeca just requires like a New York release. So it's essentially, if I don't submit it to any other New York film festivals, they're happy to get that. I've submitted to a bunch of European countries, which, again, as long as I don't release it in that country specifically, they're okay. And I've submitted to Sydney. So basically, like I've submitted to six film festivals that will essentially let it play concurrently on the off chance that that it gets accepted to all of them.
but that could take like 1 or 2 years before it actually gets there.
So that will take about 6 months for me to know, and then that'll play in the next 6 months. So then, essentially, what would happen if I was really unlucky and I get rejected from all these festivals? Now that I've submitted to these like higher tier festivals, and it's taken me 1 year to get their response, I would have to submit again to like just a tier below, and hopefully they would let me play. So that's why it takes so long because like it's not just submitting, it's like waiting for responses, and then in that time you're unable to submit to other ones. Like unless you're rich, like if you've got all the money in the world, you can like blow thousands on film festival submissions. But like the way I see it is like if I've got that much money to spend on submissions, I could have just made like a better film if that makes sense. So I've tried
Yeah.
to like be a bit responsible with that.
So for now, you're able to show like clips on Instagram like you did, but you can't show the full thing really anywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Like even
Exactly.
if you wanted to send it like to me or something, like you wouldn't be able to do that.
I look, I could, but then it gets a bit dangerous, and like this sounds like super like I'm a little bit crazy, but like if like because I've got about like I've got a few podcasts that I want to go on, and like everyone's asked for the film, and I have to say no because I don't know like who's out there. I don't know who feels like downloading the film and uploading it somewhere else. And once that happens, like that could potentially be the end of like my film festival run. So it's like all that money that I put into the film, like all that effort, which has essentially been like, 6 months of my life just like working essentially, um, is like for nothing. So because it's like such a high risk to reward, like I'm very hesitant to even send it out to like to anyone, to friends or family.
Yeah, no problem. I
Yeah.
can wait. So in terms of the genre of the film, what would you say it is? And also like what are you into and like who are you into? What directors and films and all that kind of stuff?
So I definitely say it's a crime drama, because it's just like of course like there are crimes taking place. Spoiler alert: there's a gun in the film. Like we actually hired like a professional armorer to like get a legitimate gun. Um, so I definitely say it's a crime, and then because of the nature of like the film is like 14 minutes long, and it's like 12 minutes of just talking back and forth like we're doing now. Of course, I'd say it's a drama. Um, I like really like weird films, man. I like as long as it's a good film, I like it. Like, one of my favorite films is like this weird um film made in Hong Kong called Fallen Angels, and then like on the other side of the spectrum, I've got like Before Sunrise, which is just like like a beautiful romance film. So it's like I don't really have a genre that I like to watch. As long as it's great, I'm all for it, essentially.
Yeah, it's not like the typical like Quentin Tarantino, David Fincher, like those types of
Whose
guys.
films I love their films as well.
Yeah.
But basically, like my taste, I wouldn't say my taste. I don't have a specific genre that I cling to as far as like watching. As far as like writing, it's sort of been by accident, but I have written a lot of like crime screenplays as of late. I don't know why. I probably find it a lot easier to get into. I don't know why. Maybe it's just the intense nature of like being able to use something like a gun to just take a character from like you know down here at a 10 to up here at 100 because now all of a sudden the stakes are raised. Like it sort of sounds a bit cheap, but it's a really great way to just get characters like up and moving. Like once people are gonna die and all this like um, potentially dangerous stuff's happening around them, it's easy to motivate them if that makes sense.
Yeah. So what film would you compare it to that
Um,
I would know of?
God, I think it's called Sicario. I can't remember exactly, but basically there
Yeah.
was a friend of mine who um, gave me feedback on the screenplay before we shot it, and he was like, "Dude, your film reminds me of this scene." And basically, it's definitely with Benicio del Toro, and he's at the end, and he's like essentially giving this woman a gun, but he has all the power, even though he's like giving her a gun, and there's this weird dynamic between them. I think that's Sicario, but I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about, and I think it might be the end. I feel like it might. I haven't seen it in a while, but I feel like it might be the end scene where
It's
like,
it definitely is, yeah,
yeah, like I want to say like she goes to like, I might be wrong about this because I like she goes to confront him and like he's with his family, and I think the point is he gives her the gun to be like shoot me or whatever, and like she can't do it or whatever, like that type of thing, right? Because
yeah.
like even though, but then I'm like, I forgot. I'm totally messing it up. I think because yeah, yeah, yeah. But I know what you're talking about. I saw the movie. I think in the theater. So whenever like however long it came out, and then you said Before Sunrise. That's Ethan Hawke was in that, right?
Yeah,
And then the
yeah.
director is what's the director's name? Do you know?
Uh, Richard Linklater.
Yeah, exactly. And he's famous for a lot of Dazed and Confused and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
So in terms of the money, how much where did the money go?
So I literally have the budget right in front of me. Most of the money went to paying cast and crew, um, the location as well that we rented. Again, because like some people say like, oh, just ask for favors, see what you can get. But again, when you've only got one shot and like you're spending all these thousands of dollars on getting cast and crew together for one day, you want to just make sure that the people really understand that the location does like it is yours for the time that you asked for, essentially. So I made sure to pay for that and to like, not make sure that it was something under the table. Um, and then the other big piece of budget that I spent money on was getting a good sound mixer. That was probably where most of the budget went, actually, just on the sound. And honestly, I think it's paid off.
Yeah, like you said, I've heard the sound's a big part of it because if obviously if you've ever filmed anything, it sounds like if you were in like a cabin, it probably was better because there was no like outside noise.
Yeah,
But if you ever film anything outside, there's all this like other noise going on, and like it's impossible to get like even like what the other person's saying. I've never worked on a film really. I did like a fun one with my friend when I was younger, but I never worked on an actual film, so I know nothing about how to do like the sound and stuff like that. But in terms of the editing and like, did you do like a lot of color grading and that type of stuff? Like, did you shoot it in log, or how did you like?
yeah.
Yeah,
We did. I'm very lucky because my director of photography, he's a really close collaborator. And he insisted that he take care of the color. He helped out so much with the shot list, with the storyboarding, and he pretty much just took care of like everything as far as like the image. and the color grading, like that was all him. Like he would show me what he was doing, and I would just say, yeah, that's fucking awesome. Like I have nothing to add. Like you went above and beyond. So I was really lucky in that sense.
Yeah, it looks good, but there's something about like smaller films to where, and I don't really know exactly what it is, but not so much indie films, but like even below indie, kind of like I don't even know what you maybe like a student film or like just a I don't know what you would call it, like just like an amateur film, I guess. But there's something about it where you can just kind of tell that it's amateur compared to the really good ones, and it's like it's hard to kind of put your finger on exactly what it is. Whereas with yours looks, especially like you just said, like the color and just like the film look to it looks legitimate, and the acting and everything. I mean, what do you think the major differences between like an amateur film and one of like the top guys?
So I think it comes down to three things essentially. Number one is like money. I've worked with my DOP many times. This is like easily the best looking thing that I've seen him shoot, and it's just purely because like he's got all the equipment now, and he said, "Hey, Michael, like I need all these lights. Can you pay for them?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, whatever you need. Go. Like I have the budget for it this time." Whereas before, he would be like, "Hey, like I think we can use this and this and this," and I'd be like, "Well, that's too bad because I don't have the money. So now it's just gonna not look as good." Like that's number one. Um, Number two is sound. Like, it's an obvious one, but it still has to be said. And number three, I feel like it's sort of the same to me, but the acting and the story, like I realized on this project that they really come hand in hand. Like there are so many films out there that I've seen that have like amazing actors, and I can like almost like go into the like I can almost like embody them as they're giving their performance, and I'm just like, dude, like this guy has like what they need to be an like to give an amazing performance, but the script is just like is essentially undercutting them by just not being up to standard. I think that's something that's very what's the word, underutilized. I think a lot of people when they go to shoot a short film, especially a short film, they have this sort of like gimmick in their head. Like, I think 1 Minute Time Machine is like a really popular thing on YouTube, and I think that's a great short film. But most people, when they think about a short film, they're like, what other gimmick can I take and like flip over on its head? Where it's like, dude, there's all these like amazing actors out there that just like want to eat up a good script. And if you just give them a good script, that's like one third of like everything in the film done.
Yeah, there's some examples that I would know about, like with more famous people, where that's the case, where like the acting's really good and the script's not good, or vice versa. Maybe like the script's not good and the acting, you can kind of tell the acting's just off. I'm
Yeah.
always curious. I'm always curious about that with acting because it's like, and this obviously probably isn't. It's not true, but when I kind of I'm not even a good. I can just admit like, I'm not a good actor. But when I see actors acting, I'm kind of like, oh, that doesn't really seem that hard. Anybody could do that. But really, that's not the case. But like I don't really feel like I've ever really seen like bad acting in movies or TV. I mean, maybe you could say like Law and Order, like old Law and Order or something. Maybe has that kind of vibe where it's just like something's like a little bit off about it. But can you give an example of, I guess maybe both, like what you think is really good acting, and then maybe even like just bad acting or like low budget and like and higher up, like film that I would know about?
I'm gonna have to really think here, because I want to just okay here. So I attend a lot of screenwriting workshops, and like the script that everyone is sick of hearing me talk about is The Matrix. Um, so like from a storytelling perspective, like when that film opens, like there's a lot of cool shit happening, definitely. But if we just like focus on like Trinity's character in that opening scene, like you know let's just forget the martial arts, let's forget the superpowers, let's forget all the cool shots. And like what it comes down to at its core is like there's this girl and the police are after her and these like secret agent people are after her and she has a goal. And the goal is to get to a telephone. Like what when you go to a writing class, because I've taken so many writing classes and like all of them sucked, no one ever tells you, no one ever tries to teach you that like your actor, your character needs a goal. They need something that they're going after. Like even just in the scene. Like for example, like we could do a scene right now where I'm trying to convince you to like lend me $5. And if I just keep bugging you, like, hey, Micah, give me $5, give me $5, and you're like, no, I'm like, give me $5. I don't change my plan of attack. I don't change my like strategy. Like that's gonna make for a really boring scene, which I equate to boring writing. A lot of people get wrapped up in like three-act structure and like, the theme of the film, but you can have like the fanciest structure, you can have the fanciest theme, but at the end of the day, like if each scene doesn't have like this character trying to get something with like other people in their way, it's just gonna fall flat. And that's like the most basic thing that I could offer as far as like good writing. So that scene from The Matrix, like just beautiful writing because it sure the world's crazy and like you don't understand it the first time you're watching The Matrix, you have no idea what's going on, but you do totally understand that there's this woman called Trinity and she's trying to escape from these people. Like anyone understands that. Anyone understands that basic concept, even if you don't understand what the Matrix is right yet, just yet. You totally get what she's trying to do and what she's trying to achieve. I think that makes it great writing.
I'm kind of forgetting
Great
the
acting.
I'm kind of forgetting
Go for it.
the senior. Is it the very opening scene of The Matrix? Sorry, I had to get. I was getting allergy medicine when you were like describing that. Yeah, I'm trying to. I'm
Oh,
kind
no
of.
worries.
Was it the very? Was it the very? I just didn't want you to think I was doing like drugs or whatever. Um, yeah, was it the very open? Was it the very opening scene?
It's literally the opening scene. Basically, we see all these cops, we see these secret agent type people, and like we get the feeling that they're after someone. And then we see Trinity, and like we understand that she's the person that they're after. But for some reason, we get the sense that she's the good guy, because of like lighting and all these other techniques. And so
Which is
the stage is
that's
set.
kind of crazy in itself that you automatically know that she's the good guy just by lighting. I mean, that's
Yeah.
pretty cool. Yeah.
Because all the police are like draped in darkness, like the secret
Yeah.
agents have glasses on,
Yeah.
but you get like Carrie Ann Moss's like beautiful blue eyes, and you just know like we're totally on her side now. Like
Yeah.
just from that, that's brilliant filmmaking. But yeah, it's just essentially her trying to escape from them, try to get to the telephone so that she can teleport back to the real world, essentially.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's one of those movies where um like everybody's sick of you talking about it, but it is like an amazing movie, and like that would be an example of what I think that I said with Keanu Reeves, where I don't really think Keanu Reeves is a very good actor. I mean, I could be wrong, but it's like that film still works, and he's the main guy. So I don't know if the film's just that
Yeah.
good to where it wouldn't even matter who you put in there, or maybe he is better than kind of like I realize. But I mean, would you agree with that? Like, do you think he's a great actor? I mean, I like him, but what do you think about his acting?
You something a friend of mine told me, which like I'll just repeat what they told me. Keanu plays like a lot of Keanu's bigger roles are like he plays them in a way where he's almost like inviting you to imagine yourself in his position. And for The Matrix, like I can't think of like any other way to do that performance but to have like a slate that the audience feels they can connect to because basically like everyone that isn't Neo in that movie knows exactly what's going on. The only people that don't know what's going on when you're first watching it are Neo and the audience. So for you to be able to like just, attach yourself to that character is probably like the most valuable thing he could have done, and he did it. Like I can't go back and rewatch The Matrix for the first time, but I feel like just now as an objective participant, I feel like that performance is really what like pulls you in and says, I'm right, like I'm right here with you. Like I know you're confused, audience member, but I'm confused as well. Just come with me on this journey and like we'll figure out what the Matrix is together.
Yeah, yeah, I see that. And then I think you were going to give your other example of maybe what like a bad example would be.
Oh, okay. Well, a bad example is really easy. Even though it's a great fucking movie, like one of my favorite cinema experiences ever was seeing The Room, like Tommy Wiseau's The Room. I don't know if you've
Mm,
ever seen it.
yeah.
You
I don't even know if I've
definitely,
seen the whole thing, but I watched like what's his name? James Franco's like movie about The Room. Did you see that?
yes,
And I think that I either watched The
yes.
Room or I at least watched part of The Room. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean
I don't think
that's
I
like an
could ever
obvious
watch The Room on my own.
I feel like that's kind of like an obvious example of just like a bad movie, but yeah, right.
Well, I won't say it's a bad movie. Like, I really enjoyed watching it in the cinema. It was a great experience. But like again, if you want me to just tackle this from a story perspective,
Yeah.
like the first 30 minutes of the movie, like literally nothing happens. Like all that happens in the first 30 minutes of the movie is that we understand that Tommy's wife is cheating on him with his best friend. Like that's it. We don't there's no other like needs, there's no other like no one has any goals. Like we're just being fed information like a toddler that like refuses to take their food. And
Yeah.
it's like, or if I needed to know that like Tommy's wife is cheating on him, then like why does it take 30 minutes? Like you could have done that in 3 minutes and then we could have had like a first act. But instead you just like there's no rhythm or rhyme to that movie. Which is why you could argue it's so great. But as far as like storytelling, as far as like a script and writing, like just it's the exact opposite of The Matrix.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that's an obvious one though. Like, and I mean, I think that most people, even though they may enjoy the movie and think it's a good movie, like they know that it's like not a good movie or whatever. Like, what are there any examples in like, big Hollywood productions, mainstream, that you can give where you're like that just totally felt the movie just fell flat,
You know what?
or
I
like
can't think of any, and like I
really, you think they're all just that good?
not that they're all just that good. It's just that like I wouldn't use them as an example of what not to do when it comes to writing. I think it just starts to get a bit too subjective. But I'm gonna go through all my through my letterbox activity here and try find something.
I mean, I kind of feel like if a movie like I'm trying to think of a movie myself that would be an example, but like let's just say like The Irishman, which I know a lot of people liked. But like not only The Irishman, but I mean I hate to say this one, but even like Godfather. I know everybody loves The Godfather, but like in my opinion, both those movies are just kind of boring to me. Like they're just kind of like boring, and it's like they're kind of like slow burners. And it's I know like people would probably kill me for saying that about The Godfather, but it's literally like the number one movie of all time for most people. But like to me, when I watch it, I'm like, this is just kind of like slow and boring. Or like I haven't even seen it, but I would imagine Francis Ford Coppola's newest movie, Metropolis. Like it just looks like it just does not look good, and I've heard that it's not good. And so I mean, I'm sure there are movies out there with like a massive budget that just do fall flat. I don't know if you want to like name any of them just because of like you don't want to piss anyone off. You know what I mean? But like, there's got to be movies out there where there's, I mean,
Okay,
but I
here it
but I
is.
understand if you can't think. I
Because
understand you can't even. Yeah.
no, I can.
Okay.
I really had to think. The remake of The Thing.
I don't think I saw it.
Yeah, I honestly, I just kept thinking like, because when I finished watching The Thing, I was like, okay, this is the best fucking movie ever.
The
And then I was
original.
like, honestly, I just want to see the original. I was like, I just want to see another one of these. Like I know it's like cheesy to just remake a movie, but like all I want is just to see this movie again for the first time. And then like they did it. I found out they did do a remake, and I'm watching it, and I'm like thinking like this like how did they mess this up? Like I don't know how they fucking messed that up because it was like essentially it's like a bunch of people that are trapped in like, a fortress of snow, and one of them is like an imposter that's trying to kill the other ones. Um, like how can that go wrong? And in the original, they do such a good job of like playing everyone against one another and really like getting you in the heads of the characters. And like logically, there's like a sequence of like, all right, we're discovering what the thing is, and we're using all these like different strategies to try and like beat it. And then that just taking that from the start to the end is beautiful. But with the remake, it was sort of just like it was like, all right, like there's this thing and it's going to kill all these characters. So let's just make these characters stupid. Let's make these characters do this. Basically, whatever it takes to get him killed, because you sort of think, when I look at it, it's like I'm seeing the people pulling the strings, and their goal is to essentially just kill off the characters until the end, where it's like one person versus the thing. Instead of it being like there's this character, like instead of it being what I said about the first one. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. When did the remake come out?
2011.
Okay, and who was anybody famous in it at all? Like, would I know?
Yeah, there's a great Australian actor actually. Joel Edgerton was in it. He's brilliant. Mary Elizabeth, Eric Christian Olsen. I've seen him in some things. Yeah, there's some like big actors in this. There's some absolutely big actors in this.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I
Like
saw that one.
they might not be A-listers, but you've definitely seen them before. Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of the Matrix, yeah, I was thinking like somewhat recently, like it would be such a good idea to do some sort of like simulation type movie with everything going on with AI and everything now, like or the singularity. It's like I think that it would be a um perfect talk. I mean, essentially just like the Matrix, basically a Matrix type movie. But I don't really feel like there has been a movie as good as the Matrix since the Matrix. Would you agree with that? Like, that's like the Matrix. Can you think of any other ones?
The weird one is that there was a movie that came out in the same year as The Matrix that is like almost is a very similar plot, by David Cronenberg, that was like so fun to watch as well.
Which one was that one?
It's basically called I think it's called Existence, but it's spelled very weird, so maybe it's Existence. I don't know.
And like for whatever
Basically, it's about
reason,
like this. It's like a video game that people have to go into the video game and like try to escape it and like beat it, and like they're not really sure if they're in the video game or if they're in real life, and yeah, it's kooky.
kind of like a Ready Player One type. Did you see that one?
Yes, yes, definitely.
Did you like
Yeah,
that one?
I I did definitely enjoyed it. It's very Spielberg, like 100%. Um, it's just the Matrix does something where it's the goal is not to have fun with the Matrix, but you couldn't not have fun with it, if that makes sense. Whereas like I felt like with Ready Player One, the goal was to be very like wholesome and to have fun and to like, leave the theater feeling good, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but I mean, can you think of any movies more recently that are as? I mean, even I would say that even the follow-ups to the Matrix weren't as good. Would you agree with that? I know some. I know there are people who actually like the follow-ups to it, but did you like them as much?
I mean, you like them because they're more of the Matrix, but like honestly, the Matrix for me is like a perfect film. It's a perfect script if it's a perfect film. Like you can't beat perfection. So yeah, just by basic math, like nothing that comes after is going to be as good. Just
It's
for me,
crazy though.
like
But I mean,
I hope to be proven wrong.
can you think of anything more recent that was nearly as good? Maybe not as good, but like even that you would say to watch, recommend. But it's so weird to me. But it's like, why aren't they making those types of movies? You know what I mean? But it's like with the AI being so like, I was almost thinking maybe it's too hard to make like they did it with the Matrix, but maybe it's too hard to make like a AI singularity type movie. It's just too weird of a concept or something. Well,
So
one I can think of
maybe as
that's
far as budget, it is quite hard.
one I can think of that's sci-fi. that's not it's not the same as the Matrix, but it's similar in the sense that it's like AI, I guess, is Ex Machina or Ex Machina. Did you see that one?
Oh, yeah, that was brilliant as well. That was so
Yeah.
good.
So there's that one. Yeah, I don't know. I just can't think of many more that have been nearly as good, right?
Well, that's it's interesting that you bring that up. I would say that the reason you don't see more is because like films in that budget range where The Matrix was just don't really get made anymore, I don't think. And Ex Machina, even though it carries like, maybe some similar themes, it's got like the whole AI, like the main character's like doubting his existence for a bit. Um, at the end of the day, that movie is pretty much, except for like two or three scenes, it takes place in one location. So like that's how they were able to get like such weird subject matter and still make it for like a decent budget, which
And like
you just don't see that anymore.
and like with three people, pretty much.
Yeah,
Yeah, one
yeah,
location, or maybe even four, but there was like another like AI robot like in there. Yeah, I was kind of like
yeah.
thinking if I would like love to make a movie even if it was shit and it was just for fun. Because like I said, we made one called the Glove in like high school, and my friend directed it, and like we all acted in it, and it was from like the perspective of this person wearing like a glove, and he was like going around like killing people or whatever, and it was just super, it was shitty, but I was like, it would just be fun to do that again. Like, yeah, like I'm older now, but it's like even if it's not good, I don't really care. I just want to make a fucking movie. I know it's not going to be good because we don't have the budget,
Yeah.
but I was thinking if I wanted to do one, I was like, it's got to be fucking like super cheap, which means only like a couple people could be in it. Maybe even only myself. But like one thing that I'm pretty impressed with in terms of YouTube is people
Yeah.
like Casey, Casey Neistat.
No,
No, is there like a little bit of a delay?
a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. Um, what's funny is I don't see it on your end, but it seems like you see it on my end. Yeah, Casey Neistat. He's like one of the, or do you know who like Dan Mace is?
No.
They're both like if you don't know who they are, then it doesn't really matter. But they're basically both big YouTubers, I guess. But like Casey Neistat's really good at like just using. I think he actually uses more expensive equipment, but like he's really good at like using his iPhone and like just like going around like new, kind of like doing vlogs. He's like a vlogger essentially, and it's like really low budget. He'll do like a 5 to 10 minute vlog. It's really low budget, but it's like really good. Like he's really good at like editing and essentially making the most out of like a really low budget type thing. Like he'll get like his electric skateboard and just kind of like cruise around town and like usually there's like a point to his YouTube video, but um yeah. So in terms of your movie, I wanted to ask about the color grading because that's kind of like where I'm at now. Because I'm not doing any like I'm doing like Instagram reels and TikToks and YouTube where like the sound doesn't matter because you just throw like audio over it. But I wanted to get better at color grading. Like, do you know a decent amount about color grading, or is that your do you have like an editor who's doing that?
I mean, yeah, my DOP did the color grading for this project, but I've definitely done it before. As like I did photography for a while, and it's really weird because I was like uh, color editing like my photos, and then I'd taken some nice photos with my phone, and I tried to edit them like in the same software that I use for my DSLR, and like nothing was happening because essentially your phone color corrects the image as you're taking it. So unless you use like some sort of setting to like desaturate it so that you can start with a blank canvas when you're color grading later, I don't think your phone can like I don't think you can really get much out of it apart from what you see, unless there is some setting that I don't know about.
Well, the newest iPhones have come with they call it like ProRes log, so like you can shoot in log,
Oh,
which means it's like you're saying desaturated. But I I'm like cheap and kind of like to do like everything on my phone. And I think once I film it, I would
yeah.
probably have to move it to a computer, right? I mean, do you know if I'd be able to edit it on my phone or no?
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely. oh gosh, there's some software. Oh, I think Lightroom is actually free on your phone, on phones,
Yeah.
which like that's the software that I was using to edit like my photos, but it's free on your phone. So it's, I mean, that might be the way to go.
Yeah. And I know there are other apps like that that'll like allow you to like color grade it, or like they even have some of them even have, like LUTs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of them have LUTs that you can just like put onto the video. Um, but in terms of if I wanted to get like more serious about it, what do you recommend in terms like even though I can do it on my phone, I probably should be doing it on a computer, right? What kind of computer do you recommend to get? And then also what kind of like software do you recommend using?
You don't have to really like it depends on your audience. Like if you're like gonna be like a run and gun type like person that's shooting, and the whole thing with content these days is like pumping it out there and like just having something consistent. I don't think it's too feasible to just always take it back to your computer. Like maybe I edited like one or two videos out of like 100 on my Instagram, like on my computer. Um, so I definitely think like if you can do it on your phone, like for stuff like that, just do it. Like why not? The only time that I would really get sort of like anal about like, oh, you should do this on your computer and like you should use the best software and blah 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 is when you're like sinking a lot of money into it. Because at that point it's like you should just do it like as best as you can, sort of thing.
Yeah, I agree with you, and that's pretty much why I have a computer, but it's like a cheap computer, and so I use my phone pretty much like for almost everything, which is fine for me. Because like you said, I'm just doing it on Instagram. But I guess what would be if I wanted to try and like step up, like if I wanted to step up, like do you think like a MacBook is better than like a PC? Um, like what did you use to make your movie? Like just what kind of did you use a regular computer or?
So yeah, I've got a PC that I built myself, and I just use free editing software called Lightroom. Like it's free. Like that's what you want to use for color grading. That's like a beautiful color grading software, but you can also use it for editing. And to be honest, like as far as editing goes, like I think anything works as long as it's not too weird. Um, so like I was lucky enough to have a good enough computer, but like even just getting like I don't know, like a $1,500 laptop. Like I've edited a lot of videos on my laptop. It's always been fine. Like if you ever have a problem with footage, you can make proxy footage. So basically, like the editing software renders like a very low quality version of the footage. So like if by chance your computer was gonna not be able to handle the footage, or it can just make footage that it can handle, and then when it exports it, it uses a good footage. So like it's not too important, but there is like a baseline that you want to just be above, which I would guess is probably around $1,000.
Yeah, and it's like unfortunately I've been like too cheap to even like put that much money into it. Like I bought like a $300 PC, and like I want to get a MacBook just because I have the iPhone. I actually like PCs better, but I have the iPhone, and it's like it's easier to like transfer between or whatever. Um, I just haven't like actually stepped up and bought the $1,000 PC or MacBook. But so you just use a regular like how much like what kind of PC do you have?
I'm not. I definitely use a Ryzen processor. So I can't remember too much because I built it like so many years ago. But my friend who's super into PCs was like, so this processor is good for editing. So I got that processor, which was like I don't think it was top of the line. It was like one beneath top of the line, and I got a good graphics card. And then everything else, like the motherboard, the hard drives, all that stuff, like the RAM, that's super important. I just got the best that I could. Um, it was pretty expensive, but like having my laptop as well and comparing it, honestly, like my laptop gets the job done. Um, the only real difference I would say is if you're gonna start getting into like 3D animation, if you're gonna start getting into Adobe After Effects, that's probably when you want like as good of a computer as you can get. And like as someone that used to use like a really shitty computer where I would like try to render a video and then I would have to leave my computer for 24 hours, um, you know, like the the more money you put on your computer, like the less headaches you're gonna have later. That's what I figured out. But these days, like this $1,500 laptop like edits so well. Yeah.
Yeah, and it is a PC. Yeah, it is. As you said, it's Ryzen. It's not MacBook, right? Yeah. Um,
Yeah. I've never I used Macs at film school, but like apart from that, like I've never been a Mac guy.
yeah. What's funny is, like I said, I'm not either, but like I kind of want to transition to more serious, like what you're doing. Probably not as much as what
Mhm.
you're doing, but so I do want to buy a better computer, and I like PCs better. But like I said, like the integration from the iPhone to the MacBook, like even when I try and like put videos from my phone onto my computer, it's like a hassle. You know what I mean? On my PC.
Yeah.
In terms of the log, back to the log again. Obviously when you shoot the log, like I'm able to shoot the log on my phone now. It's a lot more storage or whatever, but it obviously gives you that flat profile. And it's like it's been like a problem for me to make that look good. Like, do you have any recommendations for, like you already said Lightroom, and then sorry, real quick, what was the editing thing you said you used Wire Room on the computer?
Da Vinci.
Oh, I thought you said it was like
Yeah.
Wire Room or something.
No, no, definitely. No,
Oh,
it's
okay.
I used to use Lightroom for photos and DaVinci is like sort of the industry standard for video. Yeah.
So DaVinci Resolve, which is free, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Like obviously if you pay you get a whole lot more features, but I've never needed those features, so yeah.
yeah. So in terms of just editing the log on my phone, do you have? I know it's like hard for you to like tell me how to do it as opposed to show me, but like, do you have any recommendations when I'm actually doing it in Lightroom? Like,
Yeah, so there was this trick that I used to use, I'm not going to be able to explain too well for you right now, but basically, like, so you're looking at the image, and there's a setting, there's like a button that you can click where instead of seeing color, you're just seeing light and shadow. So like it won't be black and white like an old film. It'll be like black and white, just like literally like if you took a black pen and put it on a white paper, it'll be that. And then what you do from there is you can play with like the brightness and the shadows. And I always thought that was a great place to start. So, if you want this to have a lot of shadows, you start to adjust the shadow slider and you start to see those shadows like come in. And if you want to mess with brightness, you do the same. So basically, the first thing you do is you edit like this is just how I used to do it, but I used to edit the brightness and the shadows, and then after that, I would take it back to the image where you're looking at me now, and then I would just play with everything else from there, just see whatever I liked. But for me, the first thing to do was like to always get the shadow and the brightness correct. Yeah.
yeah, I think like you said, I used to take just photos, and I was able to get like what I wanted out of the photo like pretty easily. But like you said, like when I went to video, I'm just like not able to do that now. Like I'm not able to get like that film
Yeah.
look, and it's because I normally just shoot in the regular, whatever the regular iPhone video is, and I've wanted to switch over to log, but it's such a pain in the ass. Like for one, like what I said, it takes up so much storage. It's like 1 minute, it's like 1 gig or something like that. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah. Ho- Honestly, I would like just hearing what you're explaining to me, like I would never be able to do it with something that I really cared about, if that makes sense. But if I just did something just purely for practice, it would be a whole lot easier to just get through it, if that makes sense. Because trying to
yeah.
like learn something and make something great at the same time is really fucking hard.
You mean like if you weren't taking it so seriously, like you just wouldn't mess with like the log, you would just do like regular, yeah. And
No,
that's
no, no.
like,
I would do the log, but then I just wouldn't care if it turned out bad.
oh, like you would just post it anyways.
Yeah, I'll do it better next time.
But for me, it's kind of like if I'm gonna have that attitude, I might as well just shoot in like the regular. Like, why even do the log? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, the difference is like maybe after you've edited like 50 videos, you start to you start to hit that next level where you can start playing with things the way you want, if that makes sense.
Yeah, just for me, the log ends up being so bad for me, or it's like, and it, like
Mm.
it might not even be that bad, but it's not like the way that like other. other people are doing it. So I'm like, I'll just forget the log and just use the regular video.
Yeah, honestly, like for like content creation, like it's probably not the best idea because again, I think the goal is always to just be consistent with your uploading, right? So
Like do the
I don't know
most.
if it's worth going all to the house for that. Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of um like you said you wanted to like cover kind of like or help people get to the next level where you're at. So I mean we've already just talked about some of that stuff, but what are some other things that people can do if they want to like step up their game and actually make like a real short? And then also like do you have a day job too, or are you just a full-time filmmaker?
Yeah, so I've always pretty much had a day job, like just, coming back to Spain now, like I'm unemployed, so that's fun. But yeah, I've always been a guy that's just like, in and out of random jobs and like when I've saved up enough money, I'll make a film of some sort. Yeah.
And then do you make decent money from your films, or have you?
No, I've actually never made a cent. Like, I've never even been paid to like work on another person's project. So, like, the day that I get $1 from doing filmmaking is like it'll be a day to write about.
You didn't even make a dollar from that movie you worked on?
No, no, not even $1. No,
Like, did you just tell them you would just do it
I
like
got I got some of my
freelance?
friends pay. So I think we made a deal where I would get something on the back end, but like I don't think that ever happens. Like, that's sort of just like saying, "Hey, like I'll pay you if I'm rich," but like, come on, I'm not gonna get that rich. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, have you thought about too just putting your stuff up on YouTube? Because I mean, if you're good, I would imagine if you're good enough, which I think you are, like if you just put it up on YouTube, but I see people who will put stuff on YouTube and it'll get like a ton of views, if it's good enough. Have you thought about just going that route to make money, or even
Not a
Instagram?
hundred percent. Like, I think that sort of takes, I think it's really weird because I think filmmaking has sort of like started to merge with like all this social media stuff, and I don't think the two are really compatible because with with what you learn from films, it's almost like with my Instagram, I've basically like gone through like, everything I've learned on this film. And like one thing that I've learned is just like how fucking hard social media is. And how like all this extra stuff that I'm doing, like the marketing, social media, I built a website, I edited the trailer. Like this is all stuff that I, as a filmmaker, like didn't learn. So like to do all this stuff is like I'm essentially entering a new profession. Um, so I feel like as much as they do crossover because they both use video, I also think that there's like, not too much of a crossover. I definitely will eventually release this on YouTube, but like for something that took like, 5 months of saving, you know, and then like another 6 months of like post-production, I don't think it's too feasible to just like upload it to YouTube and then expect that I'm gonna get anything close to what I paid for it. Yeah.
No, yeah, I see what you're saying, and I kind of get the idea of like I think like keeping cinema, and then YouTube and Instagram, because obviously like they're two separate worlds. Like one is way better than the other, but at the same time, it's kind of like I kind of almost feel like well, you might as well put it on YouTube because it's like I mean after all is said, like I know that you're waiting like 2 years or whatever to
Definitely.
try and, but I mean you never know, it might just blow up. You know what I mean? And but obviously it's up
A
to you if
hundred
you want to
percent.
keep it separate. But I've seen rent like you mentioned one that I don't know if I saw that one or not. It was like one you said it was like a 1 minute something short that was on YouTube, I think. But I've seen like random shorts on YouTube that have just blown up and like gotten like millions of views. I even see one guy who does, and I follow him. He'll just get like he'll go to like different like he'll like travel and go to like Japan or like Spain or wherever, and he'll just film in the streets. And he's really good at it. And like, then he color grades. He's really good at color grading, I guess, even though I'm not good at it, so I don't know much about that. But I mean, he gets like hundreds of thousands of views, like just doing like 4 to 5 minute little. And like, obviously, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't know, but obviously, it's up to you. But
No, no, not if I could go back and do it all again, like if I could go back 15 years, I would definitely be putting stuff on YouTube and I would like be making like a sort of blog style behind the scenes channel where it's like I'm gonna yeah, I'll show you my films, but like I'll also show you like the process as well. Because I think that's more what people want from social media. Like I think people want like value and value that they can take and apply themselves. Um,
Yeah,
so, and I think I've passed this point where it's like, if I was going to ever produce content of that like quantity, it wouldn't be of the quality that I've been producing, which like now that I've crossed that threshold, I sort of don't really want to go back. And because I don't want to go back, I think I've missed that social media train, if that makes sense.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, obviously, like if you don't want to do it, you don't want to do it if it's not your thing. But in term, like, do you plan to make money off this film, or is your goal? I mean, obviously, I would assume your goal is to make money, or maybe not. Maybe you're just doing it for fun.
No, I can't. I don't think that's possible. Like, unless I win a bunch of awards where like they're also paying money, which is just like, yeah, if it happens, it happens. But like, I know that like there's more chance of me like doing a double backflip right now than there is of me doing that. Um, I think at best, like best case scenario, you know, someone sees my short film, and they're like, hey, we would love to hire you to direct a feature. That's best case scenario. What I'm hoping for is just, when I go to these film festivals, I meet some other filmmakers and maybe we can work together. That would be good enough for me. Yeah.
Yeah, there's those two guys from Australia, who made that horror
Yeah.
movie. Do you know you know what I'm talking about? Like, so you never know. There are guys
I love
who,
that movie.
yeah, what's it called again? I saw it, but
Talk to me.
yeah, talk to me. Yeah. So like, you never know. Like,
Yeah.
there are guys who make it. I know it is like improbable, but yeah. So in terms of somebody like me who wants to take the next step, yeah. What's some of your advice?
My advice is real easy. My advice, like the thing is, it doesn't sound sexy, so I don't like. Whenever I've given my advice, like people generally don't listen. But my advice is to just go and make something with the aim of it being bad. And if you can just do that enough times, you'll get enough practice in that you can't help but make something good. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, because for me, when I started out, I was always like, no, this has to be the best. It has to be good. And because of that, like it's taken me so long to be able to make something that I actually like. But if I just started out being less precious, I would have gotten in a lot more practice and you know, I could have made this film like instead of it taking 1 year, I could have done it in 3 months. But because it was like just also new for me, because I just didn't have that much practice, it's hard. So I would essentially prioritize your education of filmmaking over like the quality of your films themselves, if that makes sense.
yeah. I think that's actually good advice because so many people, the first thing they want to make is probably going to come out shitty, but they want it to be so good, and I think it kind of prevents them
Yeah.
from actually doing really anything. And even like with this podcast, and like I'm like well over 100 episodes in, and like I do want to get to a point where like I have better quality and it's not over Zoom or whatever. But like when I first started, I was kind of like you said with Instagram and YouTube and TikTok, it's like what does it matter? Like most of it's just putting up a bunch of shit, and most of the shit on there isn't very good
That's it.
anyways. So like you might as well just do it, and then in time it'll just like get naturally, hopefully get better. Probably. So
I think the important thing is that like you get better as well because it's essentially like you're doing practice reps, but you're just all you're doing is you're showing the practice reps to other people as well. Like I've got a podcast too, and like I think the total views are like 100, and like that's just all my mum. Um, but it's still fun for me to do, and like I feel like I get something from it as well, if that makes sense, even though no one's
yeah,
listening.
yeah.
But
Well,
that's my podcast. Like,
yeah. Well, I was doing this for a while, and I started doing this, and then at some point I kind of stopped because I started doing like my own YouTube videos, and then a year went by, and I actually got monetized on YouTube, so that was good because I was able to do like more videos by myself than I was get guests. But then I came back to it. I'm kind of like, why did I even stop doing this? And it's like to a certain extent, like I was kind of enjoying it less and less. But at the same time, for the most part, when I actually do it, like right now with you, like I'm enjoying it. So it's like I might as well do it even if it doesn't get a lot of views. But the big question is that I think everybody
Yeah.
wants to know, and I don't think that there's any like answer for it, is like how do you get to that next step? Like if you're only getting 100 views, like you said, a total of 100 views or whatever, like how do I get myself to that next step? And like nobody really knows the answer. You
That
gotta,
that's $1 million question.
I mean, I would
Yeah.
have to like probably start getting more famous people on or something like that. But like that's the
No
million dollar
idea.
question is
If
what
that's It's one of those questions where like once you have the answer, it's like you don't care about sharing the answer with other people. You just want to make use of the answer that yourself. So it's
yeah.
like one of those paradoxes where it's like by asking the question, like it's a question with no answer because anyone that knows the answer isn't going to be concerned with answering the question.
And I don't even know if there is like an answer. Like you know what I mean? I mean there may be an answer, like
There might not be.
there may be steps to take to get to the point where you want to be, but a lot of it's just luck, a lot of it's just random, a lot of it's when you start, like but um I've wanted to have like bigger guests on, and I have emailed or messaged some, and I haven't really gotten many responses. But I think that's part of it. If I'm having interviews like this, I kind of need
Definitely.
like not try to need to get like bigger names on. But yeah. So is that it for the advice? Mainly just start off making kind of like
You
bad
know,
stuff.
I think you just touched on something very important. I mean, yeah, no, that's all my advice. The thing is, if you just do that enough, you'll figure out like everything else along the way. But you just touched something really amazing, which was like, you're talking about getting like more famous guests on. But and I've always thought of stuff like this as well, because I've always been like sort of like a self-sabotager. Because I've always been afraid of like, for example, if I was in your position, I'd be very scared of getting like someone famous on. But you just said that you've done like 100 episodes. If I did 100 episodes of my podcast, like I wouldn't care who came on. Like I would be a good fucking podcaster by that point, and I have no fear. Like I don't care if Joe Rogan comes on. Like I know enough to like be totally comfortable and totally in my element, and that's where you want to get to, right? Because if you get to that point where like you know what you're doing, and like there's no one that can throw you off your game, then when you do get the opportunity, you're not gonna fumble it. It's just another fucking Tuesday.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And I kind of am to that point. I've honestly kind of actually like don't get me wrong, like I get nervous and like I would be nervous if like a big name was coming on, but I've kind of been to that point where I'm just like fuck it, I don't care. But but I mean, what does it really even matter? You know what I mean? It's like especially in this type of podcast scenario, it's not like you know what I mean? I mean, I guess it could matter if you really fuck up, but
Yeah.
it's like um but that's part of the reason why I like having like I get most of the people from Reddit. And like that's part of
Yeah.
the reason why I'm totally fine doing this was it's like I'm not saying that like I'm not nervous because it's you or whatever, but it's like um I like just enjoy doing it. I'm not too worried about it. Like because I'm not making money, I'm not like stressed out or anything. I'm just doing it for fun, which is cool.
Mhm.
Um but yeah, so I think we covered
I
every
mean, you've touched on something else as well. You've touched on something else as well, which is brilliant. Again, which is like, you're scared of like fucking up. You have like we all have this fear of fucking up, but I take it that you've done this podcast enough times that there have been some fuck ups, and you've just realized like, hey, life goes on and it's fine. And like once you
yeah.
understand that, like what's there to be scared of anymore?
Yeah, well it's kind of hard to like fuck up um in this type of content because it's like we're just having a conversation. So unless I'm like literally stumbling over my words or like just like asking stupid questions, like it doesn't really even matter because it's like I mean there are podcasts who like there's like this troll podcast right now where the guy like intentionally I don't know if you've heard of him Matan Evan. He's like pretty big on like YouTube.
No, but that's a great concept. That's
Like
great.
basically he just has people on and just like does like a troll podcast. I mean, the point being is like it doesn't really even matter even if I do mess up because like you said, there's so much fucking content out there. It just doesn't really matter. Obviously, I like wouldn't really want to fuck up. Like I'd want to do a really good job. But part of the thing is too with my situation is because it's so low budget, and I want to get to a point where it's like I want to get like the nice MacBook Pro and the nice, um, editing and production and before I kind of ask people on. You know what I mean? Because right now I'm like literally just using my phone. Um,
Man, that's a good problem because most people, what they would do is they would say, I'm not starting my podcast until I get the MacBook. And then they never get the MacBook and then they never start a podcast. But you've gone the direction which everyone should go in, which is just fucking start and then you figure it out later.
yeah, and hopefully I will get to that point where I figure it out and actually get a nice computer. But yeah, I think we covered most. Is there anything else you wanted to go over? Oh yeah, one other question about the actual filming. How hard is the filming to do? How hard is the whole process? This is a pretty difficult process. Like, are you using like some sort of stabilizer for the camera, or are you just kind of holding the camera, like that type of thing? Like when you're actually filming the scenes, like are you doing like one scene after another, or is it kind of like a seamless process? You know what I mean?
I think so. So, I mean, as far as like placing the camera, like I think except for like two shots, the camera was on a tripod like all the fucking time. Um, and as far as like, how hard it was, like shooting was actually relatively easy. Again, like, let's just say that like when I got to set, the barn cabin was on fire. Like that would have been the end of the film. Like I would have been out of money. I would have been like I wouldn't have been able to get everyone else like schedules to align again. Basically I had one shot. So like the difficulty was not in like the action of filming. It was just in the preparation. And then from there it's like, fate will take the wheel. So I was very prepared. Um, I'd say the filming was easy. And what you're talking about as far as like sequencing, um, the more you shoot, the more you sort of like have an innate sort of understanding of like what's the quickest way to shoot. So for example, like, if let's just say that what we're doing now, like this podcast is being recorded and we've got video. I don't know if you've got video on your channel, but there's two camera angles, right? One's like my POV of you and one's your POV of me. If we were going to record this podcast as a film, we would record the entire podcast with the camera facing me, and then we would record the entire podcast with the camera facing you. And that would be our we only have two setups, we only have two sort of scenes. And that would be it. Whereas like I've been on sets before where it's like, all right, Michael, you say your line. All right, now we're going to move the camera to Micah. Micah, you say your line. All right, now we're going to move the camera back to where it was before. And basically, you just want, if you're avoiding that as much as possible, like you're doing well.
Wait, so just to make it clear, like, so when I was curious about this, like, when you're filming two people like talking to each other, you'll have one camera on that person and then one camera on that person. So when it cuts back and forth, right? Or no?
Just have one camera. You just have one camera. So you
You
shoot it from one
you do.
angle. You shoot everything from one angle. And then you go to the other angle and then you shoot everything from the other angle.
So like you don't literally have the person having a conversation. They're just saying their lines, and then they're just saying their lines. Is that how you do it?
Yeah, it's the exact same scenes. Like the actors are just doing the exact same thing over. That's why you hear a lot of stories about actors going crazy. It's because the director's like just telling them to do the same thing 20 fucking times, and he wants to get 20 different fucking angles. Like that's ridiculous. Like, and yeah, something I did was like just like I didn't have that many shots. I just had the shots that I wanted and like kept those to a minimum. So like, I think the most takes we did for any one shot was like maybe like 15, and that was like the most by like 10 shots because that was just a really difficult like that was a very difficult part of the scene. Everything else was like 5 takes max and we move on. Um and I didn't keep getting the same, like, I wouldn't have the actor say the same line and get it from like 20 different angles. Like, just knowing the angle that you want ahead of time and like making sure that they get it right in that angle and moving on is probably the best thing to like make your life on set easier. I don't know if that answers
But
your question. I rambled a bit.
no, yeah, it does. I'm just like, so let's say you have two people talking to each other. You have one camera set up and it's filming this person, but not this
Mhm.
person. And then you'll switch it to film, and then you'll move the camera over here to film this person. But they're actually having a conversation back and
Yeah.
forth, right?
Yeah. So you'll have both actors there and they'll like run the scene. Like, as far as the actors are concerned, there are no cameras. Like, they're just doing what they're doing. And like, it's your job to like get the shot. But yeah, you would essentially just have them run the scene from one angle, and then you would go to the opposite angle over the other actor's shoulder, and you'd have them run the same scene,
But
and that's it.
why not just have two cameras, one filming one?
Yeah. So on television, stuff like that, on bigger, like, I think on television they would do that because time is of the essence. But there are very few films where they would do that because basically, once you have two cameras, like, you only have one pair of eyes, so the director's only seeing like one angle, if that makes sense. So it's sort of like a trap to do that on a film, I think. And especially with indie film, like, our camera costs like a lot of money. So if we were going to get another camera to like make our time go faster, we would be paying a lot of money. Like, yeah,
Yeah, I just thought about that. I was like, why not use two cameras, but you guys only have one camera? But
yeah.
I've always just wondered about that if they're literally filming, like if they literally have two cameras there filming both when it cuts back and forth, or if you're just filming one and then you move it and then you're just filming the other. And like you answered the question, and that's for all
Think,
scenes.
yeah, you know what? I think the one thing where you might do that would be documentaries because, sometimes with documentaries you only get one take. So maybe having a second camera there is like good. But apart from that, you just want one camera because if you have more than one camera, you are not you're not you're not filmmaking with intent. You're just recording shit and hoping that the editor will figure it out later. But like, if you're gonna like, that's why there's a director, because the director has a vision, like one vision. So if you have two cameras, like, you can't have one vision anymore because like now there's two different perspectives. Like, it has to always be singular. Yeah.
But then if you're filming, let's just say you're filming, like it's kind of hard for me to like point out what I'm talking about. But there's two
Mhm.
people talking, and you're filming straight, so it's not like one person. You're
Yeah.
filming both. In that situation, obviously, you would just only have one camera. So like if you really wanted to simplify it, you could just have a camera on both of them, right? As opposed to having to have two separate shots, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, so you could have like, so the shot that we were talking about before, like, the video that we're seeing now, it could be like, it's like a POV, uh medium close up, but we could also do like an over the shoulder shot where we're seeing the front, we're seeing your face and we're seeing the back of my head. So the camera would be like behind me, shooting your face, and what the like in that situation, like, the director might be like, "All right, Micah, like, when he says this line, I want you to feel this emotion, blah blah blah." Like, what's really important is that when I say my line, we see your face having some kind of reaction. Like my face isn't important, so like the director's not focused on my face; he's focused on yours in that cut of the shot. But then
Yeah.
there might be another section where it's all about me. So when they move the camera around, the director's going to be looking out for me, if that makes sense. They're not going to be looking out for you. So it's like that. That's where I talk about like the singular vision.
Do they ever have people in the scene that you like just described? Do they ever have people where it's the back of my head? It's not the same actor sitting there. It's like they have somebody else like sitting in for them. But
Sometimes.
sometimes I feel like that where it's like that doesn't look exactly like the same person, like from the back of the head. I
Yeah.
could be wrong. You know what I'm talking about? They have like a stand-in or whatever.
But they definitely on big productions they'll definitely do that.
But it's like the one
And
actor
again,
might just
something I
be too
learned was
busy to be in it. Like he just doesn't want to be in the scene, so he's like have
Look, it's
somebody.
it's not like a lot of people think the actors are sort of like assholes because you hear a lot of stories like that, like, oh, I don't want to be in the shot, get the stand in. But like when an actor comes to set, like, for me, if I've been working 10 hours, like it doesn't matter how I look. It doesn't matter how I feel. Like I'm not gonna be in the film. But the actor is going to be in the film. So if an actor's like on set for 12 hours and they're fucking tired, whatever moment you can give them to go and rest and go and like, um, center themselves, go and like prepare for the next shot. Like you want to just let them go as much as possible. You want to get them rested because when it's time to shoot them again, you want them to be on the ball. Because if they're not on the ball, well, now we're going to stay here for 10 more takes, and we're not shooting 12 hours anymore. We're shooting for 14. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Sometimes you'll see the back of someone's head, and it won't be the actor. Because if it was going to be the actor, that would have just been a really fucking long day on set.
Yeah. And so then when you're filming, it's kind of like interesting because when you're watching the movie, you're not thinking about the two having to literally film one person and then film the other person, which seems kind of like
Yeah.
it would be kind of like annoying to have to do that. But so when you're doing that, when you're filming one and then you're filming the other, you just have to put those
Mhm.
obviously both together in post production after, right? Like you just take the one clip, put it, and then you
Yeah.
put take the other clip and put it. Yeah. So a lot of this stuff is actually happening
Correct.
in post production as opposed to just being one like fluid shot. You're doing, yeah. Okay. And then in terms of the sound, did you have to use like the thing where you like hold it over the person or whatever, the boom mic or whatever, for pretty much every scene, or was the cabin quiet enough to where like you didn't have to do that type of thing?
Yeah, so I would, that's, for me, that's the best microphone. So you want to use that microphone always. We also use like the microphones that attach to your chest, but that for me is sort of like a backup microphone. Um, Again, like because I had extra money, I paid like a good sound guy who was able to bring all this equipment and he managed it very well. And we got clean recordings we had three microphones and we had clean recordings on all three. I've done films before where I've had one microphone and it was shit recording and that's it. Like now the film's horrible. You can't help it. So again, like you always like as you spend more and more money, you sort of want to spend even more money to make sure that there's no problems. So getting that sound guy who had three microphones and like made sure that we had good recordings on all of them, it was sort of like insurance. Because imagine like I spent all that money on the film and then the sound was shit. Well, it's not just the sound that I haven't spent money on, it's the whole film because I've essentially made the whole film useless.
Would you ever be able to do it in post production or after? Would you be able to like if the sound sounded bad in like one scene, would you be able just to have the girl or whoever it is go and talk afterwards? I think they call that something where like,
Yeah,
did you have to do that at all, or was everything was all the sound
I
recorded like
did
while
I didn't
filming?
have to do that.
But sometimes they will
Yeah,
do that.
we recorded it beautifully.
Sometimes they will have the person come and just do like the talking part and then add that in, right?
Yeah, so that's called additional dialogue recorded or ADR, where like the
Okay,
actor
yeah.
will like lip sync in the studio. Um, and again, like that will just like as an indie filmmaker, if you can avoid that, you might as well try it because now like you have to potentially rent a studio. You have to hire the soundy again for another guy. You have to hire the actor again. And not really that, but like lip syncing is like very fucking stressful. Like it's hard enough getting the performance, but like now we've got to go back to a studio, get the performance of when we were in the space, and we've got to lip sync while we're doing it. It's such a big ask. Like you can do it, but for me, I would just rather make sure that it's all good on the day.
By lip syncing, you mean like not actually talking during the scene and then having her come back after to talk over it?
No, so what will happen is like the editor will edit the film and then they'll play the video on the screen. And then when they're doing the recording in the studio, they have to say the line in the exact same way so that when their lips move on the screen, it matches. That's so hard.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So, who are some of the directors today that you would say? I already kind of asked you who you were inspired by, but in terms of today, who are some of the or directors that you think are like really the top guys? I would personally say I'm really into like Ari Aster and Robert Eggers right now. Even though I'm not like a huge horror guy, I think they're doing like a really good job. You know, Ari Aster and Robert Eggers.
No, please refresh me. I'm so bad with the latest directors.
No problem. Ari Aster did like Hereditary and what's the other one called?
Great movie.
What?
What a great movie. I love
Oh
that.
yeah, Hereditary. And
Love
then what
Hereditary.
was his other one? Midsummer, and then Beau is
Was it
Afraid,
Midsummer?
and then
Yeah.
Robert Eggers just did like Nosferatu. And even though I'm not like a huge horror guy, I don't know if you saw any of Robert Eggers. He did like The Witch, Nosferatu, The Lighthouse, and The Northman. Just, I mean,
I did like the lighthouse. Yeah.
absolute crazy like what's the word, like crazy like scenery or whatever, crazy filmography. Like it
Mm.
looks like every scene set up like really well. But yeah, who do you think are and then obviously for me it would be like Quentin Tarantino, David Fincher, all the regular Martin Scorsese. But what about you?
Like I'm finding it very hard to think of specific directors, especially lately, because I'm that guy that like I didn't when I first started filmmaking, like I didn't watch the old films, and now I've been going back and watching the old films, and also like I'm in rural Spain, so I didn't get to go to the movies because there's no movie theaters in English here. Um, but there are like the two directors that I would say are like really on the fucking ball, like it now, are the Safdie brothers.
Oh
Like
yeah, yeah,
Good Time and oh, what's the other one? Uncut Gems.
yeah,
I I didn't think that we were gonna get movies like that anymore. I was
yeah,
very pleasantly surprised to see that we are. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, even though
just beautiful.
the funny thing is about them is I definitely like them and I like what they're doing and all that. But actually watching the movies, I'm like, these movies are like really like chaotic. And like I know that's like
Yeah.
intentional, like you're supposed to feel like nervous kind of watching them. But even like the sound going on in Uncut Gems was like really just like there were scenes where like multiple people were like talking in a room and like you could kind of hear all conversations and then like you feel like you're having like a panic attack while watching it. You know what I mean? Um,
I'm
but
feeling like having a panic attack right now just talking about it. It's you're 100%
yeah,
right.
you know what I mean though? I mean it was just such wild movies and like you said, I'm glad that they exist because I'm glad that they're doing, but it's just so weird. Like some of it was like almost too much for me. Um, and now I guess they're like separate. They're like doing their own thing now. I don't know if you knew that, but like
I
one
don't
of them
know.
one
I
of
don't
them is
know.
actually doing like a movie with Timothy Chalamet, and then one of them's doing like a movie with The
Mhm.
Rock. So like they've kind of gone their separate ways.
Wow.
I think they might not be getting along as much as they were, but yeah, definitely them. Anybody else?
No one really sticks out like um, from the late era, from the more modern era. Like in the last 5 years, I just haven't been to the movies that much, which is sort of bad in and of itself. But yeah, I guess I don't know. Maybe it's like Netflix. Maybe it's the fact that I just literally can't get to the cinema anymore. But no, I wouldn't say I'm too knowledgeable on the like latest directors out. I'm
Yeah,
still in love with the old movies.
yeah, yeah. Um, so do you like living in Spain more than Australia, or which one do you like more?
Yeah, man, I love Australia, but I hate my home city of Sydney. Like it's a great, beautiful place, but it's just like not a place for like a young person, I guess. Um, you
Why
know,
is that?
it's not just like the cost of living is like way too fucking high. And when you're trying to like, save money to make films, like the last thing you want to do is like be worrying about like your rent going up like stupid crazy amounts, and like, you know, trying to get a job that like pays well and all this stuff. Um, yeah, it's so weird. Like, a lot of people that I've talked to recently have like just been moving out of Sydney, if not like to other parts of Australia, like to literally overseas, just because Sydney is just such a hard place to like make a life in, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah. What are like? I'm trying to think. I don't even know it well enough to know like what are like the main. Because I mean, I know the beaches there are like beautiful, right?
So beautiful, yeah. Like, like I'm in Europe now, and everyone's like, "Oh, Michael, let's go to the beach. Like, we got to show you the beach." I'm like, "Dude, like, relax. That's the last thing I need to see is the beach. Like, we've got the best beaches at home. Like, I'm all good."
Yeah. I'd almost want to like move there like just for the beaches. But are the people like do the people in Australia tend I've heard they kind of tend to be pretty like rowdy, right? Like kind of like
Yeah,
aggressive.
it's it's man, it's so hard. Someone was asking me this like the other day. They were asking me like, "Is Australia racist?" And it's weird, like looking from the outside in, like we seem very rowdy, we seem very racist, but like when you know like what Australians are about, you would sort of see it the other way. Like I had this like when I was in Australia, one of my partner's friends, like I met her over there, and she was like, "Michael, you're picking on me. You're being very mean to me. Like, what's going on?" And I'm like, "Dude, I'm just like showing you that Australian love, like, because part of our culture is sort of just like giving each other like a hard time, and it's like in good jest. But again, if you're like from another culture and you're seeing that from the outside, it looks like I'm being mean to my friend, but like I'm not. That's how we sort of show love. So it's a very unique culture in that like from the outside you're probably like gonna get a lot of negative connotations from it, but when you're inside it, it's like it's something completely different. Yeah.
Yeah, this is like a totally like random like um story, but like I heard this story on this on like one of my favorite podcasts where there was this band called Have Heart. Have you heard of them? They're like kind of like a hardcore band.
No.
And they toured to Australia and they said they were just like walking on the street and they like bumped into some a gang or something and the gang just totally started like beating like the shit out of them and like one guy got like knocked the fuck out and he said it, like the last thing he remembers is some guy coming with like a chain or something like ready to just like fucking hit him and so he just like took off. I mean, the only reason I bring it up is it was such a crazy story, and like I know that Australia is like probably not like that. You know what I mean? They were probably just in like a bad part of town or something.
That's so crazy because like I even get the stories where people are like, "Oh, Michael, there's snakes and crocodiles in Australia everywhere, right?" I've only seen one snake ever, and like
Yeah,
just like that story that you've described, like I've never seen something like that, never.
yeah.
Um, like I'm sure that stuff happens everywhere, but it definitely, I think it gets a bit overblown when it comes to Australia, whether it's like, dangerous animals or dangerous people. Yeah, unless they were walking like in the wrong like suburb or neighborhood or like area. I don't know. Maybe I'm a bit too sheltered. Maybe that's it.
Well, I definitely, yeah, I definitely don't think of it as like some sort of crazy, like you're gonna get the shit kicked out of you when you go there. I look at it as a very nice area, but this one story was funny. But yeah, I think it's definitely a stereotype with like a lot of the stuff, like the animals. Like California gets a lot of, I mean, it's pretty much true right now, but we get a lot of like fires and earthquakes and traffic, and I mean, a lot of that really is true, but it's not like as bad as you think it is. You know what I mean? Like I don't remember the last time I even felt like a serious earthquake, but the fires are bad. But anyways, so lastly, what are some? I always ask this: movies, music, podcasts. Um, and I know I've already kind of asked you about the movies, but whatever you want to throw out there, then also plug your movie, even though it's not out yet, or your podcast, or anything you want to plug.
Um, yeah, so if you're a filmmaker out there that's wanting to, get some tips, I have literally chronicled my entire journey, all the research I've done, all the mistakes I've made, all the stuff that I figured out on my Instagram, which is Crossroads Film Journal. Um, if you want to find out a bit more about the film, you can go to my website, which is michaelpapaeleftheriou.com. Maybe we can link that in because it's like such a long fucking name. But yeah, beyond that, yeah, I just want to say thanks so much for having me on. It's like, as much as I want to also like help other filmmakers, like I just been working on a project for like the last year, and like I want to get it off my chest. So thank you for letting me do that, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. And would we be able to watch any of your other previous movies or anything you've shorts or anything you've done?
Yeah, so if you go to the Instagram, there'll be a link tree, which will take you to my YouTube channel, and I'll put up some of my old short films up there now, right after this podcast. So if someone wants to check them out, they can. They're not that great, but if you compare them to the trailer of Crossroads, like you'll be able to see what like a lot more money and a lot more like experience like gets you as far as improvement.
Okay. And then are you still doing your podcast or is that kind of stopped?
Yeah, I do my podcast, but it's almost like it's not very it's not as sort of like organized as yours. It's almost like therapeutic at this stage. So like whenever like I've had a bad day, like my partner and I will record it's called Paths We Talk. And basically because I've had so many fucking jobs, like every episode is just like I talk about a new job, a new workplace, and my experiences there. And like we're not even I think we're about halfway through all my workplaces. So like that's how many jobs I've had. And that'll
Yeah.
be on my link tree as well.
But it's kind of just like random. Like it's you just do it like when you feel like doing it. It's not like every week or anything.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah,
Yeah,
are
it's
there
just whenever I need to like have a chat.
yeah. I mean recently I was trying to do it like once or twice a week, but recently it's been more just kind of like when I get someone and I hadn't got anybody for like during Christmas time, there just wasn't many people posting. And then like right after New Year's, I got like a bunch of people. So I have like six coming out shortly. And then are there any movies, music, TV shows, podcasts you'd recommend? I know some people don't really give a shit about that, but if you have any, I'm always just looking for something to listen to or watch. So
Well, man, as far as podcasts goes, like The Church of What's Happening Now is like my favorite podcast of all time. It's basically just like a redemption. It's just like a comedian that's like taking you through like all the bad times in his life, and like as you keep listening to the podcast, like his life starts to get better, and it's fucking amazing. I love that podcast. It's with Joey Diaz, and I don't know. That podcast is the reason that I started my own podcast because I was like, man, I love these stories of like these hard times. And like here I am I used to have all these real shitty jobs and like all I want to do is just talk about them. Talk about like my shitty times, if that makes sense.
yeah. Yeah,
Um,
I know Joey Diaz. Does he have like two podcasts? He has like one.
so I think he had three podcasts altogether, but like they're on the same sort of what's it called? Like the same link. Um,
Oh, okay. He just does them all under one.
Yeah, basically like Church of What's Happening Now.
Okay.
And go back, listen to the earlier episodes. They're really something interesting. If you go to the ones where it's just him and his co-host and they don't have a guest, like they get deep. I fucking love them. I'll knock off some of my favorite films as well for you. I just got my what's it called? My letterbox here in front of me. Beverly Hills Cop is really underrated. That was one I saw recently, which I just remembered how much I love. Um,
Like really funny.
Fallen Angels. Yeah, oh my gosh. And like not just funny, but like it's so tight. Like there is not like 1 ounce of fat on that movie. Like it's like a roller coaster. Like it starts and you're laughing and you're on the ride and like before you know it, it's over. And like it's so good. Um I saw Made by John Favreau recently. Like that was a movie that I wish that I made. Like I was so jealous watching that movie. It's basically like about two wannabe criminals, and one of them is like taking like becoming a criminal very seriously, and the other is like not taking it very seriously, and they just end up like it's just John Favreau and Vince Vaughn fighting the whole time because Vince Vaughn doesn't give a shit, and like John Favreau is like, dude, take it seriously. We gotta make some money here. Like
Yeah,
so
I haven't
jealous of
thought
that
about
movie,
that.
man.
I haven't thought about that movie in a while, but I remember it now. And then Swingers too. Swingers was good too.
Oh, I'm watching that next. That's next on my list.
Yeah. Okay,
I've seen it,
cool.
but it's been a while. Yeah,
So is that it?
that's it, man. Thank you so
Okay,
much
yeah.
for having me on again.
Well, yeah. One last one last question. What would you say the main thing is if you want to be a director? The main thing you kind of like need, whether it be discipline, maybe just having that vision, that artistic sense. What would you say that you need?
I would say fail hard and fail fast so that you can learn as much as possible. Yeah, by the time you get to like where I am, as far as like years in, you want to have made a lot of shitty films. You want to have made a lot of mistakes. Um, it takes too much effort and too much time trying to be perfect, trying to make everything perfect. You want to just make stuff when you're starting out. So don't be precious with your work at the start. That would be my one piece of advice.
Yeah. Like you said it what you said it wasn't sexy, but I actually kind of like that. I like that advice. I think it's really good advice. And I think it gives people comfort that it's like you're gonna start off shitty, so it doesn't matter. And nobody's gonna see it anyways in the beginning. But yeah, I mentioned Casey Neistat and Dan Mace. I kind of am curious to what you think about them. One of them, Dan Mace is from like um South Africa, so he has like a similar like accent to you. I know South Africa is way different than Australia, but like he kind of reminds me of you a little bit. But I'm just kind of curious to what you think of their directing style is. But anyways, I'll let you go. Thanks for coming on, Michael. It was great talking to you.
I'm gonna look them up. I just
Yeah.
literally Googled them. That'll be my mission for tonight.
It's kind of like I think some people view it as being like more cheesy than like what you're doing, like film. But like I'm like pretty impressed. They're both really good at like yeah, I guess editing and filming and stuff. It's really pretty it's fun to watch. It's just fun YouTube content. But anyways, thanks for coming on. If you ever want to come back on, let me know. It was good talking to you.
Awesome, brother. Thank you so much. Have a good one.
All right, you too. Bye guys.